Well, hello and welcome there, awesome students. Dr. J here, and welcome to week 5. So we are officially past the halfway point in this class, and things are going to start to pick up this week. We'll talk about that here in just a moment, but I certainly want to stress the urgency in catching up on anything that might be past due, number one. Number two, really being on top of your submissions this week because, as I just mentioned, things are going to start to pick up, but there's going to be a lot of time and attention you're going to need to put into some of your submissions moving forward this week and over the next 2 weeks. And so make sure that you're on top of things. Eat your Wheaties, get plenty of rest, make sure you're on track for success this week. And I highly suggest that all students be engaged in the content this week, get engaged in the readings this week. And by the way, here's a cool thing to look forward to. Some of the readings this week are really quintessential in terms of psychology articles or psychology research. And so this is definitely one of those weeks where you want to focus your time and attention well, get through all the readings, because quite honestly, these are articles you should know very well. And you're going to have a lot of coursework or submissions to take care of this week and over the next 2 weeks. Just a lot of time and attention on stuff. So don't put things off till the last minute, gang. That is never a good recipe for success. And I encourage you all to work ahead as much as possible over the next couple of weeks, because it'll really benefit you. It's going to be nice to hit submit on the Project 2 submission in week 7, because after that, it's very much downhill. And if you worked ahead, week 8 will be kind of a sleeper for you. So with that, let's dive in and talk about the submissions for the week. So as noted on the introduction side, we're going to talk this week heavily on cognitive and social learning, and we're going to get really more into that traits and predictability and things of that nature. And again, the readings are going to really support your efforts this week on the submissions. And I'm just going to go ahead and dive into the readings for this week, as chapter 6 and 8 is really important for the discussion board this week. So make sure get these two done first so you can focus on your discussion post this week, and then you're going to want to move into the rest of the articles. Probably work that way anyway, but sometimes if you're working on an assignment or something like that, you might focus on reading some of the articles first. But I encourage you to get on the chapters in the book this week first, because that's really going to benefit you well in terms of the discussion posts. The readings this week outside of that are really cool. We're talking about the Stanley Milgram experiment. And if you're not familiar what this is, I'll give you the little quick teaser. If you've ever seen the original Ghostbusters, where they're doing a little bit of like testing the participants of a study in the beginning, and they're using a shock treatment, this is really where that comes from. And so there's some really cool things in this article that just talks about that learned behaviors using punishers, if you will. And so this is a really cool paper. And again, something you're really going to want to be very aware of, as well as the Stanford prison experiment. And Zimbardo did this experiment in the 1970s. And gang, I got to tell you, you should really have a solid grasp of this article. This is another article that you'll use heavily or talk about heavily in other classes throughout this program, as well as future programs, masters, and so forth. This is, again, another quintessential experiment in psychology, and things definitely went sideways. And so if you're not familiar with this experiment, this is something you really want to pay attention to. We're also going to dive into a little bit of a debate when we take a look at traits and predicting behaviors and things along those lines. Is there really an ability to predict behaviors, anticipate certain things, influence behaviors based upon particular traits? I don't really know. Well, yes, I do actually, and certainly you will too when you read through this article, and some of the results might surprise you. So again, this is some really good stuff you're going to get into, and all of the readings this week fit nice and neat into the assignments this week. So make sure and get these taken care of. at the outset. And gang, what I strongly encourage you to do is to just maybe read one chapter on Monday and read the second chapter on Tuesday, and then digest these articles when you have those small pockets of time throughout the week, because you can generally knock these out in 20 or 30 minutes on a lunch break or something along those lines. So you can dive into the assignments this week. And on the discussion board this week, as I talked about Chapter 6 and Chapter 8 in the text, where we're talking more about specific behaviors, assumptions, attitudes, the thoughts that influence some of these behaviors, is what we're going to get into in the discussion board this week. Did I mention there's a discussion coming back to you this week? Well, yep, we do have one. So make sure that you're posted and active on the board, gang. Do yourself a favor, get it up there by Wednesday so it's off your plate and you can move on into the assignments this week. And as I said, as we go into week 6 and week 7, certainly demands are going to be quite high. So get in and take care of this discussion post right away. And one other tip that I really want to encourage you all to think about: when you're posting your main discussion post, and hopefully you put this in Microsoft Word, there are those reply posts that you have to do. Now, we all know that those reply posts can be very quick, and so I encourage you to do your replies as soon as possible. In other words, if you do your main post on Thursday night and several of your peers have already posted, and chances are if you're posting on Thursday they have, why not do your replies while you're there? Why not spend another 20 or 30 minutes and have that small task done? Because every single week, there are students who probably forgot to go back and do their replies. So do yourself a favor, get those done, spend just a little extra time on the board, and then you're done with it for the week and you can move on to something else. So that something else this week is going to be one of 2 assignments you're going to need to submit this week, gang. As I said, this is going to start to pick up in terms of intensity because there are 2 assignments this week. Again, please budget your time, but if you've pre-read the articles, spent a little bit of time thinking about this will be a fairly easy assignment for you to put together. It's going to focus heavily on identifying some of the major takeaways that you got from reading these articles. I'll also give you an opportunity to identify some ethical implications. Please make sure and validate your arguments. Don't just look at this. Gang, I got to tell you, both of these 2 papers that you're looking at are riddled with ethical challenges. And so it is going to be very, very easy for you to identify some of the more salient themes. I encourage you all, as you're reading it, to look past some of the basics and see if you can tap into something a little bit deeper than the obvious. And you'll know what I mean when you read through these if you haven't already. But identify some ethical challenges, tie in a little bit of research, perhaps use the APA Code of Ethics or perhaps a text from another class. I'm not asking you to do extensive research on the ethics, although again, these 2, particularly the Milgram and the Stanford prison experiments, again, it'd be very easy for you to find some things out there that talk about the ethical implications. We're also going to get into those trait-based personality behaviors that comes from the other article. Again, read through the information. You'll be well prepared. Also on deck this week is a milestone submission in which you're going to look more specifically at some of those traits related to the Big 5. As we talked about some of these things this week, you're going to take a typical profession and kind of apply some of the logic and some of the information that you've gleaned from your own assessments, as well as some of the literature that we've talked about over the past couple of weeks, and just apply some personality dynamics to some of these types of professions. And we'll talk about more in detail down below here, but you're just going to evaluate some of your results compared to that of what a professional might have in the field. And so take some time, go through this, and you're going to identify some traits or other things that you've talked about regarding your assessment results from the Big 5. So again, give you an opportunity to go in and look a little bit deeper on personality assessments. And finally, I just wanted to remind you all, as we're gearing up here for the project submissions over the next 2 weeks, Project 1 will be due at the end of week 6. Project 2 is going to be due at the end of week 7. If you've put the time and energy into these submissions, it's going to support you greatly in completing those projects and doing a nice job. So do yourself a favor, put the time and energy into the readings and the submissions this week. You'll be happy you did, and do your best to work ahead where you can. So that's it for the week. I know it's crazy. There's a lot going on, but gang, make sure you dive in ASAP. That's the most important thing you can do. Work aggressively through the week. Get those readings done early so you can focus on the written submissions, and work ahead if you absolutely can, because again, the next couple of weeks are going to be a little challenging, and hopefully as we get to week 8, many of you will be wrapping up things early in week 8, and you'll have a little bit of an extended break there before you begin your next class. So reach out if I could be of any support or assistance to your success this week. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me a message. Dr. J here. Looking forward to seeing and interacting with you all in the discussion board. Everybody have a great week.